So my last reason to have a hospital birth is actually not a reason. And this is totally my opinion, as is all of this. But I feel really strongly about not using money as a reason to have a hospital birth. I get a lot of calls, and one of the first questions is, how much is a home birth? Now that's a totally legitimate question, especially when you just don't know and you want to find out. But a lot of people don't seem to understand that paying nothing for a hospital birth because you have insurance isn't always the best deal, even if it means you'd have to pay out of pocket for a midwife to come to your house. You know, I'm not in the business of convincing people of that either, because I believe when money is the issue, it's really not the issue. There's usually something underneath, whether it be fear or who knows what, that is preventing that woman or that family from confronting the real issue. And money is a really easy thing to say. Oh, we had insurance, so we wanted to go to the hospital. We didn't want to have to pay anything. But think about it. It's the birth of your child. $2,000 or $3,000 for 10 months of care is really not that much. And if you meet with a midwife that meets your needs financially, there are usually payment plans or barters, lots of systems to work out. So it's really not as hard as you might think. Okay, we're finally on to reasons why you might consider having your birth out of the hospital with a midwife, either in a birth center, if that's available where you live, or at home. The most obvious is what you'll read and see everywhere. You're low risk. You're really healthy. Your pregnancies have been healthy. You're healthy right now. And you want to be treated like birth is normal and your body works. So if you have that belief in you somewhere, and I think we all do, it's just reconnecting with it, that our bodies work, that we can heal ourselves, that birth, I don't mean that birth is perfect, but that we're made to do it, and our babies are made to go through the process. And that with, sometimes a little help and guidance, that's all we need. Sometimes we don't even need that. So if you're of that belief, even somewhere deep down in your body, then just consider having your baby outside of the hospital, because, there aren't too many hospital births I've ever heard of where that's respected. Okay, now birth plans. That's something that's probably going to take me a few minutes here, and it's probably something I could do a whole video on, so I'll try and be concise. So you're planning a hospital birth, such as I was about 6 years ago, and you make a birth plan because you do believe birth is normal and natural, and maybe you've had a past experience you want to avoid, so you go on the computer and you can print out a 5-page birth plan. Every little thing you can make a decision on. Everything about your labor, the IV, what you want to do at the time of birth, cutting the cord with the baby. It really gets kind of overwhelming. And the truth is, if you're planning a hospital birth and you have a birth plan that's more than a page long, I guarantee it's not going to be taken so seriously, at least as seriously as you wish it would be taken. In the hospital, things are done the way they're done, and it doesn't mean you can't make different choices, but often it's really difficult. And when you have a huge laundry list of different choices to be made, it's pretty difficult. Again, not that it can't be done, but I think it's a red flag. If you have a birth plan that's 5 pages long, then you need to reconsider. You need to think about the control you wish you had, and maybe where you can make some of those decisions without it being a fight. My clients that are planning home births, we certainly talk about their choices, but we don't do birth plans per se, because nothing is done automatically. There's nothing I would do to them automatically at all. It's all very individual, and almost everything, barring an emergency, is a choice for them to make. So again, for me, that was a really big red flag. I sat planning my second hospital birth, and I had a really long birth plan, and I had a doula that was nice enough to come to my house and say to my face, "What are you doing? I mean, if you want all these things, that's totally respectable, but you're not going to get them there." She was very clear and upfront with me, and I cried. I did. I cried about it. And then I planned a home birth, and I was only 2 weeks from delivery. So that brings me to my next reason. You think it's too late to change your mind and stay at home. And it's not. I guarantee you that if you've had prenatal care, you can find a midwife up until a few days before you're due, really, that if you're serious and able to pay her, will take you on. So that's a good reason. One more thing about the birth plan is considering what is most important to you. Now, just because you have a birth plan, I guess that doesn't mean you always should have a home birth. Just because there are choices you want to make. You can certainly go into the hospital, but I would suggest only having a few things that really are important to you. Also, have a discussion with your doctor. If you have needs and wants in your birth at the hospital and you are confronted with either an attitude about your choices or just kind of a nonchalance, and you get the feeling that, yeah, he heard you, but he's not going to really do any of those things, that's another red flag for you to consider an out-of-hospital birth. A good reason to consider an out-of-hospital birth is you're planning a hospital birth and you're one of those women that say, well, I've done it, I know what to expect, I kind of know the way they do things, I've been there before, so I'm just going to stay home as long as possible. I'm going to stay home until I think I'm 9 centimeters. I'm going to stay home until I'm pushing, and then I'm going to make myself get in the car, and my husband's going to drive me to the hospital. Again, maybe that's a really good choice for you for some reason, but I don't get it. You can labor at home with a midwife and actually be monitored. So think about that. You're at home, you could be in labor for a whole day and nobody is there with you. Nobody's making sure that you're feeling comfortable, that you're eating well. Nobody's making sure that your vitals are normal, that the baby's heart rate is in a normal range, and that the baby's doing great in labor. There's nobody there to do that. And then you go to the hospital and you've been laboring for so long by yourself, there could be some potential problems that could have been avoided by some care and monitoring while you were actually in labor. So again, if you're one of those women that are considering doing that, the stay at home as long as you can thing, I would really, really implore you to think about just staying home altogether. Hire a midwife and stay home. You will be amazed at the difference in care, and you will be just so overjoyed to not have to hop in the car in active labor. That's rough. Okay, this brings me to my last point, I think, but one of the most important ones I feel like I'm trying to make lately is you've had a hospital birth. Wasn't awful, terrible, but it certainly wasn't what you imagined. It wasn't really what you wanted. There were choices made that you weren't totally on board with. In other words, it was just what it is. And that's the point I want to make about hospital birth. Hospital birth is absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine for those who make that choice and who know what they're getting themselves into. But please don't think that you can change that system necessarily. My favorite expression about it, which I may or may not have actually come up with, is you get what you get when you go there. And that's just the honest truth. They're set up more like a business. There's some very nice, well-meaning people, well-skilled people that work there. It's not the people at all, it's the system. And the system is set up to move people through as quick as possible. There's not hardly any attention to what you need as an individual. So if you think you can change that with your birth, all the power to you. But I really think it's a hard thing to do, especially when you're a woman in labor. Instead of relaxing into your experience, allowing your body to open up and for your baby to come, you're in fight mode. And I just don't see how that's beneficial to birth at all. So another way of looking at it, another analogy that I really like to use, which I think makes it really clear what my point is. Imagine you're going to a restaurant. You're going to a Chinese restaurant. And you walk in the door and you want to order Italian food. They're just going to look at you like you're nuts. It's not that they don't understand that Italian food is really awesome or, anything like that, but they don't do that there. So, going there, wanting that is kind of interesting. Really, it's really kind of interesting, but women do it every day. They think they can go there and get the kind of experience they want, but often it doesn't happen that way because it's a system and they're being put through that system.